We're working on an upholstered headboard for our bedroom, and it started off with this scrap of 1/4-inch plywood that we had on hand. You can see there's quite a number of screws in there, and that's for the framing that we've attached to the back. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Here we have the back side of the headboard, and this shows off the frame that we built around the piece of plywood. So we just have basic 1x3, pretty inexpensive, and this is going to be a French cleat, and what we did was we took a stud, the straightest one that we could find, and put it on the table saw with a 45-degree cut and cut it in half, so that makes the two parts, and then ripped down about, I think it was maybe 3/8 or 5/8 off the width. And this puts it just below the surface. Even though we're going to upholster over the top of this board, I wanted to make sure that it didn't hang out from the wall. We want it to hold nice and tight. You can also see that we laid out holes for buttons. There's 6 holes in here. And if you look very, very close, you'll get this little divot that I carved in here with a Dremel cutoff wheel. That's going to hold a nail so that the string from the button coming through can tie onto the nail and pull it back in there, and this groove will just hold the nail in place and make sure that the nail doesn't fall out at all over time. So the next step that we're going to have is to cut the padding to length, and what we actually got here is a Target twin bed mattress topper. It is kind of egg-shelled, but I don't think it'll be a problem. It's a lot more inexpensive than getting foam from the craft store, which can cost you, $18 a yard and up for 1-inch foam. This entire twin bed topper was about $14. So we're going to cut that to size and then start upholstering. Alright, so here we are attaching the foam mattress cover to the piece of plywood that is our headboard. And in order to do that, it overlaps all the sides, and we just take a little bit of hot glue and put it on the ridges. And then we go ahead and stick it down and just press along there, and that is just going to hold it in place. It doesn't really need to be well adhered, it just needs to not succumb to gravity once it's hung on the wall. We'll do that throughout the entire headboard, and then we'll just take some utility scissors and cut it off flush with the wood when we're done. Alright, so we got all of the padding glued on to the base here. You can see it. It's been trimmed just flush with the wood. And now we've set out our material. This is actually a clearance upholstery that came with batting on the back. It's pretty thin, but you definitely do want to use batting because it's going to help even out some of the inconsistencies between the padding and the wood. What we're going to do is go ahead and pull it tight, starting at the middle, not at the corners, and tack in just a few staples, and then we'll set it upright and make sure that there's not really any pattern on this material, but any pattern on the material should be running square with the backing itself. Once we have that, we'll put in the rest of the staples, which should go every inch or two, trim off any excess, and then we'll begin with our buttons. Alright, so it's really starting to take shape now. You can see the headboard is upside down. There's the cleat right there, and we've got every 6 inches, there's a staple all the way around. We haven't done anything with our corners yet, but it's looking pretty good from this side, and we're going to go ahead and put in our buttons. So there'll be a series of buttons that give it a little bit more shape and kind of even out any texture differences there are because of this foam. We did pre-drill holes like I showed you before, and so we're going to stick a needle in through this side and see where it comes out, and then stick the needle with our thread back through so that we get them well positioned. Alright, so here's a look at the buttons. It was a pretty simple thing. We just went and took this stuff that's, I believe, called embroidery floss. You can find it in your craft store, and it's pretty thick stuff. Put it on a pretty thick needle and sent it through our hole. Once it came out the front, you just thread it through the needle, or thread it through the button, send it right back, and you get this 2 ends that you need to tie. And here you can see the cleat that I've used. This is just a little finish nail, and I use that Dremel during the construction process to make that little slot that the nail comes into. A double overhand knot will let you kind of adjust the tension before you finish off with a square knot. Alright, so we've got a lot of staples in place, and now it's time to deal with these corners. The first thing that I do is I go ahead and just cut most of the waste off in diagonal. Now, I'd like to mention I'm not an upholsterer, so you might want to look on the internet and see what the professionals actually do. But this just gets some of the bulk out of the way. And then I go ahead and make a couple of folds. So you can see I've folded under on that side, and I have a similar fold under on this side. And I've put 2 staples in just to kind of keep it going a little bit. I will cut around here to get rid of the rest of the bulk, and then just fold the little tag in, and I'll put a couple more staples so that the corner is held nice and tight. And the next thing should be hanging it on the wall. Alright, it is time to hang our headboard. So you can see we've got the cleat on the wall. It's not a very difficult task. What you're going to want to have, though, is some type of stud finder. And it'll just give us an idea of where the studs are in the wall. Maybe a little off center with this one, but you can also use the old tap method. I know that screw went into one. I had some test holes. We hung it in the basement just to make sure this cleat was going to work. And you'll also want to take on the bottom edge, you can make sure that you're nice and level. Now, I did get this to go into 4 studs, which is just lucky with the placement. I pre-drilled these holes, especially right at the end. You don't want to crack this since it's like the matching twin to what's on the headboard itself. And I used 2.5-inch deck screws. There's not a lot of weight that's going to be on this. The headboard's pretty light, but because of the plane, the 45-degree angle on the back of this, it is going to have a tendency to pull it away from the wall. So you want to make sure that you don't just have 16 inches away without something on the end supporting it. So if you can't get a stud here, you might want to put a drywall anchor in. Now all we have to do is go ahead and hang the headboard, and we'll be done. Here we go. The headboard's all finished. Now when hanging it on the wall, you want to make sure you press towards the wall and down into the cleat, because the extra fabric wrapping around the frame is going to push it away from the wall a little bit. Once you get it seated, you'll know it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's held nice and firm in place and looks great with the rest of our bedroom.